I want a divorce because it's tough seeing your face. Those were the words I heard from my husband on the morning of the third day after giving birth to our first child. It happened right there, when I was on the hospital bed.
What? What do you mean? Why suddenly bring up divorce?
I asked.
Well, just look at your face in the mirror. You are younger than me.
But you look completely worn out, like an exhausted old woman, he replied. It's normal to have a tired face, after all, only 3 days had passed since I gave birth. What's wrong with being tired, and how does that connect to divorce? I couldn't comprehend what Owen was saying.
What?
I was unable to get out of bed due to postpartum health issues, but my husband looked me like I was something dirty and he laughed.
Hoof. Your skin is a mess. Full of wrinkles.
Take care of yourself up a bit, he remarked. On the third day after the child was born, my husband, who had finally shown up at the hospital, not to congratulate me on giving birth but to hurl insults at me, and that of course made me upset. Glaring at him with intensity, he responded with a mocking laugh.
Well, divorce is the only option. Can't see you as a woman anymore.
I am Maria, 5 years younger than my husband Owen, just turned 30 this year. Owen was my senior at the internet-related company where I worked. Back then, Owen was caring, had a bright personality, and was popular at the company. Despite he was sometimes overconfident and dreamer, I found it charming. Maria, have you gotten used to your job? You know, I don't want to stay as an office employee forever. I definitely want to have my own business. Even if it's small, I want to be called the president, said my husband, sharing his dream. His desire to start a small web design company and to be his own boss seemed redolent to me. We got along well, having spent a lot of time together as colleagues and gradually developed a relationship. After a few years of dating, when the talk of marriage came up, my husband surprised me by suggesting that he wanted to leave his job and start his own website design company.
I still want to be called the president. I want to be the master of my own castle,
he said when we were discussing marriage, and I felt uneasy about him quitting his job. However, despite my concerns, I decided to support my husband's dream. He resigned from his job, rented an office near his former workplace, and opened a small company. Shortly after getting married, I also resigned from my job to help with the company my husband had started. Though there were initial anxieties, my computer skills proved to be valuable. With the flexibility granted by our previous work, our newly established web design company somehow started to get on the right track. A few years passed, and then I discovered I was pregnant. Owen, it seems I'm pregnant, I shared the news.
Really? You can leave the work to me. Just take care of the home. Sorry for pushing you so hard all this time, Maria,
he said. Hearing those words, I felt grateful for his concern. Upon learning about the pregnancy, Owen was working hard even more, and started to work until late nights at the office. Understanding the nature of my husband's work, I felt guilty about handling tasks alone during busy periods. At the same time, my morning sickness was getting worse, so it became challenging to be considerate of my husband. Despite the severe morning sickness, I wanted to manage housework properly. However, my body didn't cooperate, and couldn't take care of stuff.
Lately, your work seems tough. I apologize for not being able to handle housework well due to the severe morning sickness. Oh, it's okay.
I'll grab meals outside from now on, he replied. After that conversation, my husband stopped having meals at home. As my pregnancy progressed into the stable period and my belly grew larger, my husband started coming home very late, almost exclusively to sleep. Several months passed, and I began to feel anxious about giving birth to our first child. I strongly desired to have more conversations with my husband. However, My attempts to express my feelings were rejected by him.
I'm tired from work. I'm working because I feel I have to take care of you and the child that's coming. Cut me some slack and let me rest a bit,
my husband would say, irritated by my expressing concerns. He even started working on weekends, claiming it was necessary. Despite the anxiety and loneliness, I tried to convince myself that my husband was working for both me and our unborn child. I made an effort not to give more trouble to him. However, being pregnant, there were many situations where I needed my husband's help. I want you to come with me to buy a crib, I said.
I don't have time for that. Unlike my parents, your parents live nearby, so ask them for help.
Feeling rejected, I began considering the option to go back to my parents' home until the due. However, my parents' house wasn't too far away. I tried to do things on my own as much as possible, but when it became unavoidable, I had to rely on my parents. When my mother came over, she smiled awkwardly.
I understand that Owen is busy with work, but can't he show a little more consideration for his wife? It's the first childbirth, and when it comes to preparing for the first child, doing nothing is just.
My father, who shook his head upon hearing those words, spoke up.
Even ordinary salaried workers are busy every day. Owen has just started his own company. He probably has a mountain of tasks. If that's the case, it would be better for him to finish as much as possible now, so he can be by her side when the birth approaches.
However, things didn't go as my father suggested. In the beginning, my husband seemed busy, and that hasn't changed. Even after dealing with one task after another, it seems there's always something new that needs to be done. He leaves early in the morning and returns late at night. Although he doesn't complain about work, he is obviously exhausted and avoids making eye contact with me. Feeling anxious, I've tried talking to him several times, but the responses are always dismissive. I'm tired, let's talk later.
Buy whatever you need, do whatever you want.
It's not a conversation at all. I worry if it's okay to bring a child into this situation. Yet, my husband often says,
if I can get through this year, next year should be easier.
His determination leaves me unable to criticize or intervene. I hope that in next year, my husband will have a bit more flexibility and show interest in me and the child. That was my only hope. Then, on the night I went into labor, as the due date approached, I felt a pain that was clearly different from the usual discomfort. Calling the hospital to inquire if this was labor, I was told to come in immediately. However, my husband was once again out for work. After numerous calls, he finally answered, saying,
"Today's impossible. This negotiation is absolutely crucial. Go to the hospital on your own."
With noisy background, resembling the bustling atmosphere of a pub, my husband responded in such a way. Despite the pain, I didn't have the composure to press him further. I managed to contact my mother, and my parents took me to the hospital. Even though I had contractions, it doesn't mean that I was going to be in labor immediately. To distract from the pain, I massaged my lower back, rubbed my belly, and somehow endured the pain, while waiting for the moment. Eventually, under the doctor's supervision, I went to the delivery room, and a hellish battle began. Being a first-time mother, it took a long time. However, when I heard the healthy cry of my newborn, I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Afterward, I took care of the baby while resting my body. During the painful hours of labor, I didn't even have the energy to contact my husband for over half a day after giving birth. However, it seemed my mother had been keeping him updated during that time, and he replied that he would visit once work settled down.
However, he didn't come.
No matter how many times I tried to contact him, he didn't answer, and anxiety crept in, wondering if he had been involved in some incident. The next day, my in-laws, who came to the hospital room, were furious. They scolded him for neglecting his wife, who had just given birth and focusing only on work. It seemed my mother-in-law, Lily, tried contacting my husband, but it did not work. My husband showed up 3 days after the childbirth. My body hadn't fully recovered, and I spent more time lying in bed. Seeing me like that, my husband frowned.
You're way too ugly. Fix yourself up a bit with makeup and your hair.
He suddenly threw insults at me without any mention of our child. I was left speechless, my mouth hanging open.
I don't like women becoming unattractive just because she had a child. But you, with your skin in a mess, full of wrinkles.
I got mad and talked back at his remarks. In response, my husband chuckled.
Yeah, I came here to divorce you. I met this beautiful woman who's a daughter of some company CEO, in connection with work, and we're dating now. I want to marry her, so let's hurry up and get divorced,
he said with a smug smile, leaving me in shock.
Wow, your dumbfounded face is as ugly as ever. Come on, let's divorce. Hurry up and sign,
my husband said with a grotesque grin, then began laughing.
You can raise the child. Name it whatever you like. I'll make sure to pay alimony and child support properly.
Despite his nonchalant demeanor, I tried to express my anger at my husband, but he no longer cared to listen. The next morning, my husband's panicked parents rushed to the hospital and apologized to me profusely, their heads almost touching the floor.
Maria, we heard about everything from our foolish son. We are truly sorry.
My husband's parents, fed up with their son, immediately cut tie with him upon learning about the divorce. Moreover, they expressed their willingness to do anything beyond alimony to make amends. While my parents were dismayed by my husband's actions, they advised that if a divorce was inevitable, it would be better to settle it quickly rather than let it turn into a messy situation. They supported the decision. With the desire to avoid contact with my husband as much as possible, during my hospital stay, the preparations for the divorce, changing insurance, submitting change of address notices to the post office, and collecting belongings left in the apartment where I was living with him, were taken care of by my parents and his parents. Various things started moving quickly right after giving birth, and when I recalled the moment when my husband bringing up divorce, there were moments when I felt like losing myself in anger. Also, I couldn't help but be curious about the woman my husband had an affair with, claiming to be a president's daughter. My parents advised me not to meet her, saying it would only make me miserable, and I realized they were right. Every time unpleasant memories surfaced, I held my newborn child and strongly resolved to live positively for the baby's sake. After returning to my parents' home for a few days, my health gradually improved, and I began to adapt to the new life. Although the divorce from my ex-husband brought a sense of relief, there were times when I felt down, thinking about being told that he found no charm in me and the embarrassment of being cheated on. However, being busy taking care of my adorable newborn, I couldn't afford to stay depressed. On the day we went to the city office to submit a change of address notice, I put my baby in the rear child seat, my mother sat beside, and I drove for the first time in a while. Even with my mother accompanying me, I felt cautious driving a car with my newborn inside. Nevertheless, I managed to safely park in the city office parking lot. Since the baby was asleep, I entrusted my mother with baby and decided to go to the office alone. However, someone approached me, a classmate from my university days.
Oh, Maria, it's Maria, isn't it?
It was Iris, still wearing flashy makeup as always. Iris, boasting that her parents owned a company, had a haughty attitude. With a history of numerous relationships and a carefree, irresponsible lifestyle, she was disliked by many of our friends. Moreover, Iris was a woman who seemed oblivious to the fact that she was disliked by those around her.
Oh, Iris.
It's been a while, I greeted her.
It has. You know, I'm getting married again. Both of us are remarrying, and my partner, though small scale, is a company owner. We just submitted our marriage registration,
Iris said in a manner that seemed to flatter anyone, showing that she hadn't changed since our college days.
Oh, really? That's wonderful. Congratulations. Well, I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I'll excuse myself.
I thought that continuing the conversation would likely turn into Iris's self-praise. So I wanted to quickly finish my errand and return to my mother and child, so I promptly parted ways with Iris.
You're leaving? Hey, come on, it's fine. My husband will be here soon, and I want to introduce you. Come on,
Iris, with her sweet voice, insisted as I tried to distance myself. Just then, a man who seemed to be Iris's husband approached. To my surprise, when I looked at that person, it turned out to be the last person I wanted to encounter, my ex-husband, Owen.
Isn't that Maria? What are you doing here?
He said.
Oh, Owen and Maria know each other? Well, that makes things easier. Maria, let me introduce you to my husband, Owen.
He's a company owner, you know, Iris said. I was so shocked that I couldn't even speak. It turned out that the president's daughter Iris, as mentioned by my ex-husband, and the company owner introduced by Iris were Owen. There were rumors about Iris who flashy and famous even after graduation. I heard that the reason of her previous divorce was Iris's repeated affair. Each time resolved with a significant amount of money. There were also stories about that her parent cut a tie with her because of a substantial alimony she made her parent to take care of, and even after being disowned, Iris's love for the luxury lifestyle persisted. Rumors suggested that Iris was still searching for a wealthy partner for remarriage. While the title of a company owner was not a lie, I knew better than anyone that my ex-husband didn't have much financial flexibility. Iris was being deceived by my ex-husband. He had boasted to me about marrying the president's daughter. The generous payment of alimony was likely because he believed Iris to be the president's daughter. It turned out that my ex-husband was also deceived by Iris. They seemed to have mutually deceived each other into deciding to get married.
Iris, you know Maria? Well then, let me introduce you. This is my ex-wife, huh? So you're Maria, the ex-wife Owen was talking about?
I couldn't contain the laughter that welled up inside me. The absurdity of the situation, with two scheming individuals now a couple, struck me as incredibly amusing.
Hee hee hee, ah ha ha ha.
I burst into laughter right there. Although Owen and Iris looked at me strangely, I didn't care. Iris was the woman who had an affair with my ex-husband. While I initially thought about confronting her after the divorce, at this moment, it just didn't matter to me.
What's wrong with you? Iris, let's go. Well, yeah.
Seeing me burst into laughter in the municipal office parking lot, perhaps finding it creepy, the two of them quickly run off. After a while, I received a message from the company I used to work for, saying they were expanding their operations and were recruiting employees.
Since I had gotten divorced and had some free time,
they invited me to come back, hoping I would return.
Due to having small children,
I asked if I could work remotely.
They said it was okay,
and asked me to consider it. With my parents' approval, I decided to start working from home. Since my parents' house was surrounded by elderly households, the arrival of a baby in the neighborhood after a long time made my child quite popular. Thanks to that, my child became a popular and loved.
As a result,
even towards me, who had returned to the neighborhood,
everyone in the neighborhood was friendly.
Even my ex-husband's parents, when they want to see their grandchild's face, come to visit for a short period. Each time, they apologize for my ex-husband's rudeness, but both my parents and I don't have bad feelings towards my ex-husband's parents, so I can't help but think they don't need to feel sorry and apologize.
We really caused trouble for Maria. To divorce such a good person like her, he's really just a fool.
His parents say this every time we meet, but the conversation about my ex-husband always stops there. Since disowning him, they haven't seen their son,
so they're unaware of my ex-husband's current situation. However, since the company I work for remotely,
and the web design company my ex-husband started,
are in the same industry,
information about my ex-husband inevitably reaches my ears. The husband who started playing around when I became pregnant, he did not take care of his business well as well. Because of that, apparently lost social credibility early on. In the midst of this, my ex-husband met Iris,
noticed she was the daughter of the company president, and they started dating.
The other day, I heard an interesting story from my contact. When my ex-husband came for a delivery after a long time, he appeared with a worn-out face and a stubble beard,
in a shabby suit,
and according to my ex-colleague who is now a supervisor, he was loudly criticized.
Iris is strong-willed and quite demanding.
And she seems quite show-off. It seems she's making my ex-husband work like a workhorse, just to maintain appearances. My ex-husband and Iris constantly argue about money, and it seems both regret getting remarried to each other. Hearing about my ex-husband looking worn out, it made sense. Surprisingly, my ex-husband
called me once out of the blue. Hey, could you return some of the alimony I paid you?
Come on, after all, I'm still the parent of your child. Help me out, will you? Hearing such words from my ex-husband, I felt pathetic thinking he's the parent of our child. So, I hung up without saying a word in response.
And then, yesterday, during a conversation about deliveries with my contact,
I was informed about my ex-husband's current situation as small talk.
Regarding Maria's ex-husband, he seems to be in quite a tough spot.
But it's his own fault, you know. According to a colleague, my ex-husband is apparently getting divorced with Iris. Both of them married each other seemingly to deceive one another.
Considering their marriage lasted until now,
I can't help but think it's a miracle they made it this far, so I decided to ask what the issue was.
So, they're finally getting divorced. What's the problem with that? Well, you see, apparently, his affair is the reason for the divorce.
It seems my ex-husband has cheated again. If affair is the reason for the divorce, he might face a substantial alimony claim from Iris. The fact that my ex-husband asked me to return alimony suggests he must be going through another divorce. He's been disowned by his parents, and with no social credibility, he likely has no reliable friends to ask for help. It would be difficult for him to make such an amount of money. However, it is Iris who is demanding alimony from him. Surely, Iris intends to squeeze every possible penny of alimony she can from my ex-husband.
The lowest man who asked for a divorce from his newly born wife. The irresponsible man who hasn't even paid child support.
In addition to the negative reputation,
the good-for-nothing who begs his ex-wife for money.
It seems that more bad rumors about my ex-husband will spread. In a small industry, trust is crucial, but
with such widespread negative rumors, it's likely that no one will trust my ex-husband
to handle their projects anymore. The web design company my ex-husband started was a project I also contributed to during its inception. It's a bit sad to think about, but it's unavoidable.
He's on the brink of bankruptcy, they say. Maria, you might not be able to get child support anymore.
It is likely as my contact mentioned.
However, even if I can't receive child support,
I intend to continue the claim.
Even if my ex-husband struggles with it, it's the result of his own actions.
What I'll be careful about from now on is to ensure that my child will not know that such a person is the father. Once my child grow up,